Thank you, and good morning all, and thank you for everyone joining me for this shareholder update. If you do get the chance, please jump online or on our ASX platform and read through our disclosure notice and important notice at your leisure, and I'll now jump into the detail. So today is a bit of an update and a bit of a briefing to shareholders, current, previous and new moving forward. I'm going to cover why Platinum Group Metals and why they really are a strong investment proposal for a number of investors as well as Podium Minerals. I'll also cover the importance of our Parks Reef project, which really is a globally relevant resource just here in Western Australia. And lastly, why Podium and why the Podium team, covering our board, our executive team and support from the recently added technical advisory team. A quick update around why Platinum Group Metals. Quite often in the market I hear, well, why PGMs? Aren't PGMs used heavily in combustion engines? Is combustion engines dead? Are they going to be replaced by battery electric vehicles? If that's the case, what is the demand for PGMs? So I think it's important that we address what that concern is around some of the investors out in the market. The graph on the left-hand side, which is an updated graph sourced through the World Platinum Investment Council, which we have connections into, has really described what we think is a great outcome for existing use of PGMs in existing technologies. The white bars in the graph represent PGM use in combustion engines, as well as and really outlines that existing demand will be driven well into the end of next decade, regardless of the uptake of battery electric vehicles. So when we think around the use of PGMs and we see the uptake in battery electrics, it's important to understand that it really continues to be supported by PGMs in hybrid vehicles, in combustion vehicles. The upside, which we see, which we're excited about, is those yellow bars. Fuel cell electric vehicles running on hydrogen as a feed really has an opportunity to really push the demand drivers of PGMs from the end of this decade. So from now, where they exist in Hyundai cars, in Toyota cars, and also now more recently in BMW, is expected to uptick well into the next decade and really look at doubling the automobile drivers for PGMs. So when I look at future demand for PGMs, underpinned by existing technology, which already removes greenhouse gases, but also will help drive new green technologies around fuel cell vehicles. When I look at supply, and there's a couple of key ones, can supply match that increasing demand into the next decade? We're seeing downside supply risks stem principally from electricity curtailments in South Africa, where existing infrastructure through Eskom has a number of interruptions and continue to see load shedding and power load shedding through the South African operations. But we're also seeing sanctions impact Russian supply of PGMs as well. So when we look at the forecast supply of PGMs end of this decade and into the next decade, we're seeing a growing shortfall, somewhere in the range of 1 to 3 million ounces by 2030, and growing on the basis of the demand gaps moving forward into the next decade. So the Parks Reef project, and just a reminder for our investors, we have 6 million ounces of combined what we call 5E PGM. So platinum, palladium, rhodium, iridium and gold. What we sometimes gloss over is we also have significant base metal loadings. 127,000 tonnes of contained nickel in our resource is not just Australian significant, is globally significant nickel resource. 94,000 tonnes of copper used to connect future green technologies, whether it's battery electric, whether it's hydrogen fuel cell, is critically important to decarbonisation, as is cobalt, which we have significant cobalt resources. So whilst PGMs are, I guess, the frontline number of our Parks Reef projects, we can't forget that with nickel, cobalt and copper, we really have a true suite future-facing commodities as part of our resource. With Australia's largest platinum resource of 2.9 million ounces, and with a mining licence already approved and a native title granted, we are as close to production ready as any other PGM operation, not just in Australia, but globally. A snapshot of what the value proposition is for our Parks Reef ore body is what we'd consider a Parks Reef or a Podium basket price or a pod basket price. So how do we evaluate that opportunity? With 6 million ounces, the combined weighted average price of our ounce, using prices from the 22nd of March, is $3,746 per ounce. And that's made up of the 8 payable metals. You'll see platinum and palladium in the graph on the right make up around 47% of our pricing. And with increasing platinum prices recently and stability on palladium prices, we're seeing a strong uptick in that basket price. So the basket price is important. 6 million ounces at 3,746 million ounces is a great starting point for Podium and our Parks Reef operation. And we'll continue to understand how we can maximise operating margins of that basket price moving forward. A reminder for those around our Parks Reef, 15 kilometres tested, drilled and modelled to date, close to the surface, 15 metre wide ore body, modelled down to 250 metres, but with 3 holes down at 500 metres, really excites us around the growth potential at our Parks Reef. As we move forward and using funding from our current SPP, we'll look to continue to test what that growth potential is at Parks Reef along strike to see if it extends past the 15 Ks, but importantly is to continue to test the high prospectivity at depth and with geophysical testing using either historic data or new data, we think we can test that growth potential to well below 2,000 metres deep, which is akin to what we see in South African PGM operations. Processing. Along with the demand drivers of PGMs, the big question I have had in the last 12 months is, that's all well and good, but in Australia, how do you process PGMs? We have a couple of options which we're aggressively pushing and having really good early success in. With our oxide ore, which is near surface, we've been able to crush and grind, test flotation on it, but more importantly, we've been able to test our atmospheric leach or our hydrometallurgy testing on shallow open cut potential oxide ore and start to achieve recoveries well above 80% to produce a high grade product which would be suitable for a PGM refinery. Now, why is that important? The world has not been able to unlock the value proposition of oxide. So we are towards the front leaders of this industry and commodity drivers around oxide PGMs. So the opportunity is not just for Parks Reef and Podium, but it's to apply our Podium technology to current and future oxide potential globally. The sulfide ore. So the sulfide ore is where we're also putting a lot of our time and energy in. It's where the growth potential is for Parks Reef and Podium. We'll continue to test our crushing and grinding. We'll continue to optimise flotation in the next 6, 12, 18 months, and we'll continue to optimise the economic drivers associated with our downstream processing, and namely the same hydrometallurgical test work, which we would consider with our oxide, once again to produce a high-grade PGM refinery feed product. And for reference, a PGM refinery feed requires somewhere in the range of 100,000 grams per tonne to 200,000 grams per tonne, which is well above a concentrate feed grade of just 100 to 200 grams per tonne. So the opportunities are significant for Podium, and we really embrace that challenge around how do we optimise a PGM processing stream right here in Australia. So for us, continuing to advance that, really continuing to focus on driving maximum value from our Podium basket price and really look to maximise profitability of our Parks Reef project through these steps. So the team, we've covered this before, but I think it's important to reflect. You know, we do have a board, we do have a management team which has experience in project development. It has experience in operational activities right here in Western Australia and Australia. It has experience in operational excellence and improving project economics. And with the newly appointed technical advisory panel, we've been able to add in approximately 100 years of PGM expertise on top of that to really hone that project and operational experience and apply the South African PGM experience, which has taken 50 years to optimise this commodity in this sector. So what's next? Where are we now? We are in the middle of the share purchase planning. Hopefully a number of the shareholders or all of the shareholders have had the opportunity to read through the offer booklet. If you haven't, please jump online at our Podium website or any of our recent social media, or if you need help working through our share purchase plan, which closes this Friday, please put a call through to the office and our team can help navigate that. So once again, share purchase plan targeting to raise $3 million, closing this Friday. Use of funds, you know, hugely important. Our focus around this use of funds is not around corporate office. The intent is to apply these funds directly back into the project and maximising the operating margins of our Parks Reef project, as well as focusing on what the growth potential is at Parks Reef. So starting with geology, we've got two key project areas. One is to look at our XRF program, which is going to look at taking existing drill data, modelling that so we better understand grade boundaries and rock boundaries associated with our reef package. And that will help enable us to upgrade our resource model with a view to informing how we increase the confidence from inferred to indicated at significantly reduced drilling requirements. Our geophysical survey work is really around how do we get best bang for buck and illustrate the growth potential and what we think is significant growth potential at Parks Reef. It's taking existing data and or planning for future data to show how large the PGM reef could be. And the benefit is our reef sits between two different rock units, an ultramafic and a mafic unit, which really allows us to use these aeromagnetic or seismic data to really differentiate where our reef can sit. Metallurgy, we've spoken about in detail. The focus is removing waste from our product stream through the mine, through the crushing grinding circuit, into the flotation circuit to improve our feed grade. So taking our PGM feed grade, lifting that to a higher grade before it enters our downstream hydromet process, so we can actually inject lower amount of capital and really seek higher recovery and better operating margins. Similar to atmospheric leach, the focus is really around those economic levers. It's how do we maintain those recently published high recoveries, but look at reducing some of our operating drivers, such as power use, acid use, and other reagent use, so we can optimise the inputs ahead of a future pre-feasibility study and maximise those project outcomes. Metal extraction, that is really around proving up and continuing to test our final PGM products. Once again, targeting the suitability for a PGM refinery feed. It's really providing final specifications so we can sit down with one of the big four European PGM refiners, such as Heraeus or Johnson Matthey, BASF or Umicore, or even potentially the South African partners, which have PGM refineries as well. So our focus is really around project inputs and testing the growth of our Parks Reef project. Timing for these, so timing post the funds coming in is really to try and get the bulk of those project drivers and answers by the end of 2023. Metallurgical improvements, design improvements will continue right through to the final construction build. But right here, right now, we think we can answer the key project levers by the end of 2023 and be ready to launch into that PFS in 2024 with focus around what our project drivers are, what our engineering designs can look like, and focus on optimising what our production and productivity outcomes can look like at Parks Reef. So lastly, in recap, demand for PGMs is strong. It really is underpinned by existing technology in the use of auto catalysts. As we've seen, reducing combustion engines will be replaced with increased PGM loadings, supporting existing technology demand to 2040, but more excitingly, being pushed and driven by future technology and use and uptake of fuel cells supporting the hydrogen industry moving forward. So we see a bit of a divergence between growing demand for PGMs, but either reducing or constrained supply or global supply of PGMs, where Podium and Parks Reef is well placed to support that gap. Parks Reef is scalable, so with 15 kilometres long, we have the opportunity to consider multiple operations over time. We have the opportunity to focus on the high-grade prospects within our ore body, and we've got the opportunity to apply existing processing techniques to a new commodity in PGMs in Australia to really open up Australia and Western Australia as a new PGM province. And we have the right team. We have expertise across every component of the value chain with experience in project development, project optimisation, operational improvement and strategic outlines. So huge opportunity to jump on board with Podium, and I look forward to continuing to see support from existing and new shareholders moving forward.
Thanks, Dan. We've had a few questions come through, so I'll work through them. Now, if you'd like, I could go back to the diagram, the cross-sectional 3D diagram that we had on slide 9, and if we have a look at that. Yep. You mentioned the geophysical work that you'll be doing to test this theory at depth. I wonder if you could just walk us through perhaps the advantages of using geophysics and aerodynamic surveys to test this target, as opposed to going out and spending money on drilling.
Yeah, it's a good question, Jono, and we put a lot of our efforts and energy into proving up 6 million ounces, which is a really strong basis for not just our first, but potentially our second and third operations potential at Parks Reef. So we've got the information we need to kickstart our project, but we are interested at how do we get the best information at the right cost to show size and growth potential at Parks Reef. Geophysical application will help us define where the likely PGM reef can extend to. So it does sit on the boundary between two different rock units. Geophysical testing can be extrapolated down to significant depths greater than 2 kilometres and a long strike. And with our high drill success over the last 2 to 3 years, we have a level of confidence that can transfer into future ounces. Now, for a relatively low cost, that can inform our project team around the upside potential. And for comparison, we can look at historic data for 100,000. We can apply new geophysical techniques for 300,000. But to put one drill hole from surface down to a kilometre, we're talking in the range of $1 to $1.3 million. So one hole will give us a point in time. Geophysical data will show us significant size potential, both at depth and along strike, of significantly deeper than what a single hole can do for the same price. So it's now about bang for buck. It's about showing that opportunity for a lot less.
So along that same theme, Do you have an idea of what the historical aeromag line spacing was, and if you were to run new aeromag, would you be targeting a particular spacing?
It's interesting. The historic one's quite good, and we've actually retested and refreshed the data. The aeromag line spacing is at 50-metre intervals perpendicular to the strike of the Parks Reef ore body. So, and the quality of data is still applicable to new techniques to interpret that data. So we're not in a position where we think we need to go out and do new aeromagnetic surveys. Should we want to supplement that data, we'll look at other geophysical techniques like metallurgic or seismic testing to really produce 3D or detailed 3D models at depth.
And importantly, it's a very efficient allocation of capital.
Absolutely, and it's existing data using new technologies. Our data is from 2004, and whilst it still stands up today, we're best off using existing data and using those techniques to extrapolate the potential of Parks Reef, which we think is there.
One question around rhodium. Obviously, you've mentioned rhodium in this presentation. It's one of the 5 PGM elements that you have in your ore body. Maybe you could just give a bit of a refresher to this shareholder who's asked around any significant rhodium strikes or the latest thoughts around rhodium.
It's a good question. I mean, rhodium is still, because of that high value proposition, it is still one of our top 4 value drivers within our Parks Reef ore body. So, I think today it sits just over $8,000 per ounce. So it is one of the rarest and most precious metals. For us, it exists in some element in every drill intersection across Parks Reef. We know it sits in higher grades on the footwall side of our ore body, which is important. It means we can target and optimise our mining techniques to focus on maximum value for Parks Reef as part of our project evaluation. So we're excited about rhodium, and we've seen rhodium has produced significant revenues for existing operators in South Africa over the last 2 years when it hit $30,000 per ounce. And the fact that it's only produced around 1 million ounces per year globally suggests that, that it is rare. It can't easily be replaced in existing or future technologies, and it can't be mined without new platinum and PGM ore bodies. So it requires projects like Parks Reef to support current and future rhodium demand going forward.
Thanks, Sam. Maybe we could just talk through the processing. And you mentioned the significant weight reduction you get with the atmospheric leach process. Do you have an idea, is there a ballpark figure in terms of reduction per tonne of input, i.e. how much waste is removed in that process?
Oh, it's an interesting one. I mean, we will, for example, I mean, if we have a concentrate product, and if we were to look at selling a concentrate product to the market, we're still carrying about somewhere in the range of 30% to 35% of our total mass through to a smelter. So a lot of our waste is then carried through to downstream smelting products and needs to be disposed of by those smelters. As we run through our processes, we will reject a lot of that waste through flotation into tailings dams and/or for use in backfill operations, particularly as we consider underground. But then as it goes into hydromet, we'll then remove, the best part of 99% of that waste towards making that high-grade product. So for the person who answered that question, we're looking to produce somewhere in the range of a 10 to 20% PGM product, and we would then be trucking, shipping, or potentially even flying final products in 44-gallon drums. So the amount of waste which leaves site significantly reduced, downstream energy footprint associated with logistic costs of trucks and shipping will be significantly reduced compared to a concentrate. And whilst we still need to do the exact numbers around what that relates to in carbon footprint, we've seen similar type producers quote numbers in the range of 80% energy and carbon reductions compared to smelting of PGMs and traditional refining of PGMs. So not just logistical cost improvements, we'll see energy improvements, downstream energy improvements, and significant reduction in logistic costs with this process.
And I mean, I think on this slide that we're on now, it sums it up in the simplified logistics point. But just to reiterate, this is not a bulk moving operation. This doesn't require rail. This is a very small, compact, high-value material that you'd be moving ultimately. Yeah,
but very much. I mean, using our own sort of Podium basket price as a guide. I mean, to produce, in 100 kilo production of this high-grade concentrate, we're talking contained value somewhere in the range of, $10 million of contained PGMs and base metals in a final product. So small volume, high value, ability to be transported by, armor guard type trucks to neighbouring airports or shipping, shipping ports. So the opportunity for us is significant, and not just us. I think the opportunity for the sector is significant to unlock value in Western Australia and Australia around these critical minerals. Mm.
So, look, unless anybody else has any other questions, I'm happy to hand over the webinar controls back to the moderator. But thank you all for your attendance today. This will be posted up on the company's website shortly, a recording. And we look forward to your participation in the SPP and support for the company going forward.
Thank you. Thank you.